Hi everyone, welcome. We're preparing to check in on my bin of mixed red worms, and that really just equates to red wigglers, European night crawlers, and blue worms. That's that mix of worms that a lot of people seem to have. It's what's pretty popular from one of the big worm retailers. A lot of people end up with this sort of mixed population of worms. One thing we've been doing here in this system is playing a little game of ping pong. So in the very beginning we added their first two feedings down the middle, and we even kept track of what was fed at that time. And then we initiated this concept of ping ponging from side to side for each feeding. And there we go. How do I save money and not use paper unnecessarily? Well, I've got this little iPad here, which actually allows me to connect right up to my computer upstairs and display the spreadsheet that I normally create a print of here. So perhaps this will be the way going forward to check in on the most current information about the system. Admittedly, it is a little bit small and perhaps difficult to read, but it's been now 10 days since the last feeding. We're now at day 222. This is now feeding number 20. So that means 18 times once we get today's feeding in. We've been going back and forth in ping pong style, and the stuff they got last time 10 days ago, asparagus, would have been positioned right here underneath the feeding zone indicator. So before we open up the opposite side to give them today's meal, which you might have seen on the document, a little sneak preview as to what they're getting, the meal of strawberry and banana will go over onto the other side. And then maybe we'll even just keep this diagram around. Usually in the past I've always just come in with a replacement printout of this and then use this as supplementary bedding down in the feeding zone. But I guess we could hang on to it, use it as sort of a supplementary top covering here in the middle, and just as a reminder as to what system we're working on here. Materials out here on the top surface are a bit dry, not terribly dry. I'm sure we don't have to go too deep to find material that's quite damp, and that's exactly what I'm encountering, not to mention all the springtails I'm seeing there. So let's proceed. Let's see how that asparagus we gave them 10 days ago is holding up. Asparagus, it's a pretty fibrous food. So even though the worms might be able to nibble away a good bit of the soft asparagus, the meaty stuff, this really strandy, fibrous stuff is going to take them a little bit of time. So I anticipated bumping into leftovers in here when we come in to see how they're doing with the asparagus. And you got to remember that for quite some time we were using foods in the beginning that we anticipated to be slow composting food items. So stuff like this pumpkin stem were placed in here. And our little diagram will even tell us exactly how old that pumpkin stem is. Well, perhaps not, because we would have to know which of the two pumpkin stems that one is. Because here you can see pumpkin with stem 120 days ago, right? And then there was even another one 167 days ago, pumpkin with stem. So whichever one it is up there as far as age. And, I try to squeeze the thing a little bit and it doesn't give whatsoever. It's really tough. Not too surprising. What do we got here? Okay, we got bits and pieces of what remains here of the Brussels sprout stalk. I've got these going on in a couple different systems. In fact, I've got one system where it's still kind of holding together in this form. But here I think we made the conscious decision to begin helping that thing along a little bit, because the idea is not to have stuff linger indefinitely as leftovers. The whole idea here is that the worms do eventually break the stuff down. And there is certainly plenty of moisture down here. And you can see the worms are pretty content in this stuff. They're really shiny and glistening and lively. I can feel them squirming between my fingers. You know, once in a while when I'm holding worms this way, one or two of them will fall off, but the majority of them do stay right here on my hand. So if we were to just flip the whole pile over, that's where they all went. They just crawled down underneath the material to get out of the bright light. So you can see this this system's pretty nicely populated. A good number of mixed red worms living in here. And I just figured I would till up some of the material down here and try to aerate it a little bit as long as we're in here because of the pretty high degree of moisture I'm sensing down there. But we're not here to gawk at past feedings. The whole idea here is typically just to, you know, perhaps bump into stuff and then perhaps check the document to see how old they are. I mean, on the paper version, 10 days old now, it says 97, so this thing is 107 days of age. Some things do take time in the worm bin, you know, so you got to be patient. The asparagus chunks were not surprising after 10 days to find leftovers of them. In fact, I bet, you know, even the next time we come back in here, we'll probably see some signs of the stuff. Perhaps not too much, but the stuff is pretty tough and fibrous. If you've ever eaten asparagus, you would know. And that's the other pumpkin stem right there. So it'll so some of these even I don't know if what I'm feeling inside is vegetable matter or worms. But just in case it's worms, I'm not going to squeeze it too hard. So I don't feel like I've got to be overly careful to make sure all the foods are replaced back down in the hole, but that I guess would be sort of the optimal situation. But let's not go crazy. Perhaps we'll backfill, leave a little bit of a hole here just in case we need to drop in any other remaining leftovers that we bump into here, and then we can cover that up pretty easily. And this looks to me like the stem of a banana. And let's see, when was banana fed? 49 days ago per the 10-day-old printout. 59-day-old banana peel, still holding up, right? So perhaps even 2 months from now, this banana peel stem will also still be holding up. Strawberry, on the other hand, I don't think will stick around very long. That's most likely going to get gobbled up 1, 2, 3, but I think we've had our fun over on this side. Why don't we proceed to getting over into the feeding zone that we are going to be feeding, and I'm going to hang on to this feeding zone indicator since I don't have coffee for them today. We'll just reuse that coffee filter. Now down here on this side, this is a gourd, and I've been attempting to not help with the breakdown, so in other words, trying not to break the thing. So whatever. Perhaps we can help it in one way, though, by maybe dropping a few chunks of strawberry down into that hole, perhaps luring a few worms down into there to go after the yummy food, and then perhaps they'll also continue working down the gourd. So this thing here is a little chunk of corn cob, and I had a few of these corn cob chunks, spheres if you will, in here. I do distinctly remember, at least on one occasion, breaking one by accident, I believe. It just sort of ended up in my hand and I squeezed it a bit too hard and it cracked. That was a number of check-ins ago, weeks ago. So I'm sure that one right there would break just as easily, if not more easily. Here we've got some avocado pits, which when I encounter them I try to break them if I can, but sometimes they just don't want to give and they're pretty tough. And I'm actually looking at the document over there to see when avocado went in here, and it was 87, 97 days, 100, almost 100 days. I always thought that these avocado pits would soften up and become much more crumbly, much quicker than this. So I wonder why this one's taking so long. Do we have any other notable leftovers? I've somehow managed to let the hole backfill, but we need it to be open so we could drop in today's feeding of strawberry and banana. We don't have a whole lot, that's for sure. So we don't need a huge hole, but I do want to have a good sized hole into which this gourd can be positioned down nice and low. And then by being there, perhaps a couple of these strawberries can accidentally drop into the hole. How accidentally does that seem to you? Any worms coming within range of that gourd will probably sense the yummy little snack we left for them inside, and perhaps get some of them to huddle up down in there to try to partake in the yummy strawberry snack. And, you know, I totally spaced out on applying bedding. I've got my prepared bedding here, which I thought we would lay down as a foundation for today's feeding, but you know, better late than never. Why don't we just go ahead and drop some in over on top of the foods? But you know what? Let's also deliver their foods with some pulverized eggshell as grit, and then in can go the supplementary bedding to complement their 22nd feeding. Does that sound right? No, 20th feeding. 222 days. That's where all the twos came from, and as far as what was stuck in my mind, that's the age of the bin. 222 days. That's getting up there. And it is a fun system. Definitely well populated. Worms are definitely active. It's always kind of cool to track down where they're at, hunting down the most recent yummy feeding that you gave them. And I think that the banana peel and the strawberries should be pretty popular. Although you got to admit, when we looked over on the other side, that asparagus was a serious hit. They were all over that stuff. So we'll just keep this in here with only a newspaper covering everything. Things are a little bit dry here, so that paper will probably still be in the same shape as it is now the next time we come back in here, whenever that may be. So that's it for our check-in, everyone, with the mixed red worms now on day 222, getting a feeding after only 10 days. I think we've had a 10-day interval once or twice in here. I think the average here is somewhere between 12 and 13, but you know, I figured why not? Let's just come on in here and give them a snack. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.